Anisa Sanusi, what is your favorite game?
My favorite game is Persona 5 Royal.
This is going to be interesting.
I've been summoned to for a fight, I heard.
This is going to be one bitch ass fight.
Try to run me through, hold on, think again. Don't you know we're just starting? But you sure we got the clue? How bad this we go? Don't you know? No more art. And as you look to the horizon, not a cloud, but then stormy winds go too cold. Seems like it crept up out of nowhere, all around you is not what you foretold. You never see it coming. You see that my mind is too fast for right. You're done, but the time it hit you, you're not surprised.
My first experience with video games isn't particularly interesting. I feel like it's a cliche of my older brothers both were into video games, and I got to follow the two of them. Well, I get to follow my dad bring the two of them to a game shop back home in Malaysia, Southeast Asia. And our very first console was a Sega Mega Drive, I think. Definitely one of those ones with the really big, chunky cartridges. And because we're Southeast Asia, we get a lot of Japanese games, and none of them are translated, obviously. But those were the only games that we had, so we kind of just bought it and figured it out. Like we just pressed every menu button just to trying to figure out how to play this game. Thankfully, the game that we bought was a fighting game based on a manga that me and my brothers really, really loved called Yu Yu Hakusho, and we would just play that fighting game against each other all the time, and it was great. So I would say that was like my most earliest, best memories of video gaming, um, before eventually kind of moving upwards towards getting a PlayStation 1. And again, it's the same case where I think it was my brothers who asked for the games console, but I was just so much more of an avid gamer than they were that I would kind of stay up late and play it by myself, up until the wee morning at like 4 a.m. or something, or just like full on just stole it from their room and bring it to my room. And yeah, eventually we'd graduate to a PlayStation 2, and both my brothers went to boarding school, which meant I had full reign. So it was great. Obviously we also had a Game Boy Color. That was my very first Nintendo console as well. Gosh, as I'm saying this, I feel like I'm quite the spoiled child. We had a lot of consoles growing up, and definitely lucky to be able to try out a lot of different games. And it's a little bit different in Southeast Asia, in terms of like how we acquire video games. So back home, this is in the 90s and the early 2000s. The only way that we could afford any video game is by piracy. Like as a child, you don't know what you're doing is piracy. Thinking back on it now, I'm just like, oh yeah, like there's no way that a a single disc would cost like 5 ringgit. So 5 ringgit is basically like a pound. There is no way a PlayStation 1 game would cost you a pound, right? But to us, that was like the most reasonable price we would pay. And obviously, there's this kind of uh, institutionalized system going on where like all of our PlayStations, our PS1s and PS2s, right? Like you go to the shops and then if you ask for one, they'll be like, you got to get this chipped. Like if you don't chip it, you're not going to be able to play any games, because if you play the original games, as we call them, like original discs from, I don't know, overseas, like the UK or America or even Japan itself, gonna cost you like hundreds and thousands of ringgits, and that's just like way too high for anyone to be able to afford anything. And it's interesting to think about that now because I'm not living in Malaysia anymore. So a lot of my recent video games experiences with Steam or with the PS4 or the PS3 even has been, UK based, and I've been paying for proper games like original games. But back then, everything's chipped, everything's pirated. So I would go to these game shops, right? And you just have loads of like printed copied CDs, like CD-ROMs for the PC. I was a huge avid like Barbie gamer. I played all of the Barbie games on like my little pirated discs. It's amazing. And obviously with the PlayStation or the PlayStation 2, we didn't really have a great source of like what is good or what is bad. What I mean is like games media. Like we didn't have a lot of magazines that is targeted to the Southeast Asian audience. Like maybe I didn't never came across it. It was definitely really difficult for me to come across any kind of like gaming review magazines back then, right? We did eventually have one in the mid 2000s called Gumpak Stars. And they were like video games and comics and that kind of nerd culture. But prior to that, it was a bit of a hit and miss. Like you go to these shops, you buy like 20, 30 discs, like hoard all of them. I have no idea if any of them good. Never heard of any of them. Literally judging a book by its cover. I'm just like, this art style looks cool. I'm gonna buy this and play it. And that was it. And the journey doesn't stop there. When you come back home and you put it into your PlayStation, there's this bit where like it's a bit of a dice roll where you don't know if it works because they're all pirated CDs. There's no like customer support. There's no like refund. Like you bought it and that's it. Like they're not gonna like, oh, it doesn't work. So
doesn't work.
Like
fuck you, out of luck.
Yeah. So like this is why I never got past disc 2 of Final Fantasy 9 because my disc stopped working. And I was just like, well, that's it. Can't finish this. I could never get past the loading screen for Final Fantasy X. So the furthest I've been in that game was in recent memory when I downloaded it again on my Switch. So yeah, it's kind of crazy thinking that like my entire I want to say like the thing that got me into video games as a career was the fact that I played really big popular JRPGs, right? So the big two for me is Final Fantasy VII, the original, and also Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Thinking back about how flimsy like our piracy thing was back then, it was amazing that I got all of these games to work long enough for me to enjoy them and for me to be like fully immersed in that nerd geek culture, right? But yeah, playing Kingdom Hearts 2, looking at the graphics, that was amazing. That pushed me into wanting to go into animation as a career. And this story, I feel like I've told it quite often now. I'm not sure it's interesting anymore, but being from Asia with Asian parents, the number one concern is that you should be able to sustain yourself. Like we want you to get a good paying job, and just going into art was a bit of like, oof, are you sure? And I think I made a deal with my parents, being all like, this was in high school, right? We have this massive exam, which is I think the equivalent of like an O level, and I did 11 subjects, and the deal was like, just get straight A's, and we'll let you do whatever you want. Just study, get the grades, right? And my subjects were like accounting, chemistry, physics, and I just really hated all of it because I'm so focused with art as a career, right? Like I didn't even care what it was. I am a born artiste. Like I'm an artiste. Gosh, I was insufferable as a young child. But in a way, like the only way my parents get me to do anything is bribery. So this is one of them. Like we'll let you do that if you get straight A's and stuff. And I was like, all right, fine, I did it. So I did it. I got straight A's. And didn't even like wait. Usually we have like a 3-month wait from like finishing your exams, and then there's a 3-month wait until you get the results of your exams, and then that's when people start like actually applying to or getting into universities and stuff. I didn't even wait for my results. Like I went straight into art school. Like I was like, nah. I got in through using my grades from my mock exams, and obviously have like a process like you send in drawings and stuff, you know, and they see like what you're interested in. But yeah, so straight out of school, I went to art school, and I got culture shock, I think is a nice way to say it, in a sense that like when you're in school, you are easily the most whatever you are, you know, because everyone's a huge melting pot. People from all over your region have different skills and different personalities. I am the artiste. Again, I am the artiste. I'm the girl who draws, right? You go into art school, everybody draws. And I'm just like, oh boy, I'm no longer special. I'm not even good. Like I am below average when I went into art school. It was painful to realize that I'm not special anymore. You would think that humbled me, but it didn't. I think that overconfidence definitely was a double-edged sword, in a sense that it got me through many years of, you know, just education and things like that. But at the same time, it was very bad for like personal development and you know, emotional intelligence. I would say I wasn't a very nice person back then. That part came a little bit later when I started working, but yeah, because I think I was very self-absorbed in a way that I was really just thinking about what any young person would think about at the time, right? Like, what am I going to do for a job? Like, is my art good enough? Do you think I can work for this company, that company? And at the time, it was very focused on animation, so I wasn't even thinking about video games. Like, it was kind of weird how I never connected animation to video games. Obviously, video games have animation, but in my mind, animation is a very strictly film and TV thing, right?
That
So
games aren't
I
a
was
consideration from it anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Even though it was kind of weird because like we would have concept art class and things like that, and it would be like the assignment would be like, if you're making a video game, you know, what would the character look like and things like that, right? So it's kind of like a lot of our work is half and half. Like it's half film, TV related, and the other half is like, you know, if you were to get into video games, and the other half 3 halves, wow, I'm good at math. The other half is like visual effects, right? So you learn how to do I don't know, particle systems and stuff like that. And obviously because it's art school, you tried a little bit of everything, and I quickly learned that I was very bad at 3D modeling or any 3D program, including animation. Animation was impossible with 3D for me, at least. But I actually really enjoyed the 2D animation aspect of it, like old school 2D animation, like paper on paper, like 24 frames per second, like drawing each frame, that kind of thing. And obviously that to me, that just came a lot more natural to me, because 3D programs is so technical, because it's just trying to remember what box is checked, or like, is this menu open, or, you know, that kind of stuff. And it's two different ways of thinking about problem solving. I'm so much more intuitive, like go with your gut, just draw what feels right, you know, eyeball it, that kind of thing. Whereas with 3D animation is very precise, you know, you got your numbers, you got your checkboxes, you got this and that, and like you have to troubleshoot your own issues with the program. So I hated all of that. So eventually though, again with a thing that my parents struck another deal with me. They weren't too happy with the fact that my art school only offered a diploma. So it's a diploma in animation. And my mom's pretty old school in a sense that like you need a degree. Obviously, you know, if you want a good job, you need a degree. They're from that generation, right? Like a degree equals good job. My mom's an architect. My dad is an engineer. off the bat, they're very like book smart, brilliant people, right? So obviously they also have that thinking, and they just want the best for me. So this conversation led to you're going to go to the UK to finish your degree, you know. And then obviously I was in a relationship at the time. I've just learned how to drive, you know, a bit of a social life, and I'm just like, no, I don't want to leave my friends. I don't want to leave my boyfriend, you know. And my mom's like, well, it's only 2 years. Like, you can decide if you want to come home if you want to. You know, it's only 2 years.
Like
and I
that
know
means
that
anything?
right? It's
2
funny
years?
because like, when was that? That was I moved to the UK like 11 years ago. Oh gosh. So yeah, I don't want to say my mom lied, but she also kind of proved a point with me. So I was like, gosh, I hate it when my mom is right. And she usually is. She always is. So mom 1, Anisa 0. But yeah, to kind of talk with university is it's basically that. I came to uni in Teesside, Middlesbrough, up north. I was accepted into 3 different universities actually. So I was accepted into Teesside, Bournemouth, and Hertfordshire. And I think depending on who you talk to, most people will be like, why don't you just go to Bournemouth or even Hertfordshire? You know, because like those are
These are the
those are
universities.
those are like the trendy universities, I would call them. And I flat out went to Teesside because of 2 reasons. Number one was because they had a festival called the Animex. They're still running it now, but at the time it was run by this lecturer called Gabby. She like, I think I was Googling Teesside and I saw a lot of students talk really, really like, they said really nice things about her. Like, to see students be so like amorous towards their lecturer, and she's running this this festival that got that was pulling in like really big names, you know, from both animation, film, and video games. It was like the best of both worlds. And as students, that I don't think we got it for free, but it was heavily discounted. And that was the biggest pull. Like, I wanted to be there for that, right? And the second reason is because it was cheap. It was super cheap.
Naturally.
Yeah, because it was in the north, in Middlesbrough. Like the cost of living in Middlesbrough is stupid low. Like, it's good for us students, foreign students at least. But but I like, it's funny, and I'm laughing because I'm thinking about it now, because obviously I've lived through it, and I've lived in different cities in the UK now, so I have a better idea of like what the different parts of the UK is like. Obviously at 19, I didn't know there was a north-south divide in the UK. I didn't know that was a thing. Didn't know what English people thought of Scottish people. Didn't know about anything
Ireland
about
sometime.
Northern
We'll
Ireland.
show you a proper north-south divide.
I know, right? Gosh, I knew nothing. But yeah, just learning all of that was that. And I remember my mum being a little bit like, "You sure you want to go to Middlesbrough? It's like in the middle of nowhere. Are you sure?" And I was like, "It's fine, mum." Also, you know, the cheap thing, like the cost of university was never a thing that my parents would tell me to think about. Like, I'm extremely privileged in a way that my parents could foot the entire bill, so I never had to take any student loans. And again, this is just purely ignorance from the time, but like, I didn't know that the normal route was to get student loans, and being able to pay off everything when you're entering is not normal. So in a way, I was very, very lucky that my parents had a foresight to start like a college university fund from since I was born. So, you know, by the time I was old enough to go to university, the fund is there. But in a way, I was still a little bit like, you know what, if I could get a degree from somewhere cheaper, I would still do that. So decided on Teesside, went there, and it was good. Like, I wouldn't say it was amazing, but I don't really have any other university experience to compare it to. But it did what it did. It got me my degree. And I met a lot of really interesting people there. Obviously, some of them are my friends till this day. One of the most important people I've ever met was my university boyfriend. Obviously, we're not together now, but he remains as a very important person in my life. And a lot of the stuff that happened in university opened up my eyes to, again, I came in there with the idea of like, animation, but video games has always been there. Like, oh yeah, kind of like a friend. My eyes was always set on trying to get into animation as a job. My first job out of uni was with an animation company. It was a startup. It was very small. It had like 2 people, 3, I think. Yeah, it was only 3 people. And I was their very first external employee that they hired at a very discounted rate. And they had, it was really fun because they didn't know. They were so young. It was really funny because they were only like a few years older than me, but I was young because I was fresh out of uni, bright-eyed,
bushy
wanting my
tailed.
first job. Yeah. And, I just assumed that they knew what they were doing. But thinking back on it now, I don't think they did. They were just figuring things out as they went along. But, me being the small petite Asian girl in a room with like 3 other English guys, like I learned a lot from them. And that kind of experience though, I honestly don't remember what was the main reason I tried so hard. What I mean by trying so hard is that if you remember what my mom said, just stay there for 2 years and then you can decide to come home or not. And I think I made a lot of new friends. I saw the opportunity of career and jobs in the UK for at least film and TV. And I was desperate to stay. And I was already staying for an extra 2 years after graduation on a post-study work visa. So this special visa, I think I was the last batch to get it. After they abolished it because Theresa May was the minister at the time. She was in charge of that stuff.
Home secretary, yeah.
Yes, and that's where my like pure unblinded like hatred for her started way back when. I have so much to say about when she
prime minister.
Oh gosh, yeah, it was the
dark
anyway.
days.
Yeah. Anyway. I'm not going to start ranting about that
no,
for now.
No.
But, like,
wait, let's talk games. And
yeah.
Yes. Let's not talk about Theresa May. No, go on. Sorry.
And just kind of, I just really, really want to stay in the UK because I built a little bit of a network here. I had friends. I had like a career that I could see myself doing for a long time. And so that was the start of my journey of looking for a visa. Gosh. And what I didn't realize is that this visa faff would last like a decade. I've only had my permanent residency for a year now. So up until a year and a bit ago, I was just constantly worried about getting deported because of visa issues. And I didn't realize just how much of a mental health burden that was until I received my permanent residency. And, my being able to stay in the country is no longer tied to a specific job, to a specific company. So yeah, I did. So those 3 guys, the small animation startup, they were small. They had no money. They barely had any fund. To become a visa sponsor, they need to be earning an X amount of money. They need to have X amount of money in the bank, all these things. And they didn't have any of that. So heavy heart, they said that they can't help me. And I started applying like crazy everywhere, just any big company that I could see a website of, I'll just apply straight into it. So mind you, this is where my transition from animation to video games began. A lot of my portfolio was very much tailored to 2D artists for film, TV. Not so much concept art for games. Like I was nowhere near good enough an artist to be a concept artist, right? So I didn't really apply for those jobs, but I did scour for 2D artist jobs. And thinking about this 2D artist title now, yeah, you don't really see that title very often anymore these days. Like video games have matured, or at least has progressed in the last decade of me being in it, that we have dedicated job titles now to, UI artists, UX designers, and more and other things. Whereas previously it was like 3D artists, concept artists, 2D artists, like if you're, yeah, actually that's a lie. There are a lot of 2D artists these days. Like pixel art is still a thing. So never mind me. I'm just making shit up. I think it's because I don't look for those jobs anymore. Like, because so my first crack into the video games industry was a 2D artist job, and my jobs at the time definitely was a lot more like a bigger range of interesting things, and not just the UI. I didn't even do any UI design. Like all of the design was made by our lead game designer. My first job was making ports of PSP games into PS Vita. And also just regular, like most other games that we port to the Vita. Bless the Vita. it wasn't as a hardware, like it was decent. Like I liked it, but unfortunately the like didn't pick up enough steam, did it?
Love the Vita. I adore the Vita. Like there are so many good games out for like I know we're going to talk about Persona 5 in a bit, but like it'd be remiss of me if I didn't talk about the Vita and mention Persona 4 Golden, because it's so good. So good.
Very good. I played so Persona 4. Obviously I've heard of the Persona series before getting into the games industry, but I never really played Persona until my university boyfriend introduced me to it. So obviously we would live in different parts of campus, but I would just be over at his place on his PlayStation 2 to play Persona 4. Like I would be there like for hours and hours on end, up to the point where you get the series of questions and that you need to get right to unlock the secret boss. And he was there, and he was so excited. He was like, do you want to try and attempt this? Because you only have one try. Like if you get it wrong, like you're not gonna. And I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna risk it. Just tell me the answers. Like I want to get to that final boss. So he was kind of there, like just watching me play from start to finish, including the secret boss. And I think this is one of the moments where you just sit there and think, wow, video games was
wow, video games are actually good.
Yeah. So I remember this vividly. We were in his dorm. He shared it with like 3 other guys, and we were in the kitchen. The PS2 was connected to the TV on the wall, and I was on their like dingy little couch next to the kitchen. People were in and out getting food. It was noisy, and I remember. And I think I beat the secret boss in like one go. So I didn't have to. Did I? I might have at least died once, probably. But I remember just trying again, straight up, and it took so long. Like the final battle took so long, and I remember my palms were sweating, and every time the controller vibrated, I could just feel it go all the way up to my arms. I think this was just because I've been playing for too long at that point, and I just refused to stop because I was so close to finishing. I was like, no, just a little bit more. And then just that scene where like all of your maxed out links, social links, they come up and they give you like, like cheering you on. And I was like, oh my God, the power of friendship.
Friendship win.
So yeah. So I think Persona 4 that I played in university stuck to me so much that during like the next few years, the small little crumbs of like hints of like the next Persona 5 coming up was just invigorating. Was just like I was like, yes, just give like I remember the very first teaser poster they sent out it was red and it had chairs and chairs had like this prisoner motif on them and I was like, oh my god.
You are a
So
prisoner. What emancipation! I remember that trailer. Because
yes,
there was this big massive Persona stream, and okay, you know what? At this point, let's talk of Persona 5 at this point because we've gone so long. Anyway, yeah, let's talk Persona 5. Let's talk of, you know, that's coming off the back of that of Persona 4 and, you know, that trailer, because I remember that trailer so well because it came part of this big massive Japanese Persona stream where they were showing off for the first time, I think, Persona Q, the 3DS game with the Persona 3 and Persona 4 casts, Persona 4 Arena 2. And the thing I remember most is the voice actor for Teddy, the Japanese voice actress for Teddy, just basically torturing people basically by just I don't know what she was talking about at the time, but I was just like, yeah, I see you. And she went on at night for something like 10-15 minutes. It's just like, yeah, but like I hear you, but like, can we get to the good stuff now? What about the trailers? What about Persona 5? And then I remember Teddy, this sort of Midnight Channel just sort of transitions from this red background, and then you see this sort of countdown timer of like 55 seconds and stuff like that there. And you knew immediately, just like my eyes wide, just like, oh my god, this is it, oh my god, this is it. And Teddy just disappears, and then that trailer just comes up, you are slave, want emancipation. And I was just like,
oh my gosh. Yeah, it's just I think that's like we didn't even know what the theme was other than like prisoner, slave. Like what does that even mean? What is it? Ugh. Yeah, it was really, really good. Although I feel like in comparison to most other Persona 5 fans, or at least Persona in general series fans, like I was a lot more patient. Like I really didn't mind the constant delays and stuff.
Because like this was a game that was meant to come out. The first trailer said winter 2014 for PS3, and like, okay, that could have been 2 months from the time that was revealed. Obviously, you know, realistically, it would have been the following winter. It didn't arrive until something like 3.5 years later or something. This is like
2017, wasn't it? Yeah, I didn't come out until 2017.
Like it was the longest wait. Just like it felt relentless for me. Anyways, the game I was most excited for in all my time playing games. It just felt like I said, the wait just never felt like, how can I sort of say it? The wait was never ending, basically. Like you just felt like, please let me just play this game now.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the thing. Like my sense of time has really warped now. Like pandemic aside, I really don't have a good sense of timing. And I remember thinking, yeah, it kind of sucks that this is being delayed or it's not out again. You know, every year is just not out. But when it did come out, I was definitely not a day one buyer. Like I didn't play Persona 5. Gosh, I did not play Persona 5. I didn't buy my very first Persona 5 that I bought was Persona 5 Royal, which I bought last year in 2020. So I waited an extra 3 years for Persona 5 Royal, and I didn't even know what Royal was. So
Patience of a saint.
I got lucky.
You have the patience of a saint, basically. I would say.
I think I got really lucky. Number one, as a Persona fan, just in general, I got lucky because Persona 5 Royal is the definitive version of that game. Like, it is amazing. And I like there's a few bits and bobs that obviously, no game's perfect. Like there's a few bits I was like, meh, but like Okumura's, mansion, that's the worst. Just no matter how you look at it. But like because I was really good, I wouldn't say like I avoided most spoilers. So I didn't know anything about the whole Akechi thing or any of the like big reveals. So I had the most very unique and really lucky experience where I got to experience Persona 5 Royal. As I would say definitely as the developers intended the game to be from the start. And because of that, it is my favorite game. And it's okay. So when you asked me to do this, right? I know for a fact that people expected me to say Persona 5, but I feel like I need to say why, because a lot of people who did play it are just like, yeah, it was okay, but not like top tier all-time favorite, right? So why do I think it's like my favorite game? Like, okay, so to call back on my childhood, I barely could finish any video game anyway. Like I can never be sure if any of my discs would work, right? Number one. And number two, I am a coward. And I've realized this.
Sorry, go.
I am a massive coward. And what I mean is, Final Fantasy VII did work. All the discs work. I got up until disc 3. And all I had to do was just get on disc 4 just to get through, the whole like meteor crater bit and get through Sephiroth. I chickened the fuck out. Like I intentionally did not put in disc 4 because I thought like, oh god, I can't do it. I'm not good enough of a gamer to finish this game. So I never finished Final Fantasy VII because I was too scared. And that continued years later when I was back in university. I had a PS3 with me in my room. I downloaded Final Fantasy IX again because I was just like, no, I'm gonna finish this game. Final Fantasy IX. I also chickened out just around like the final battle because I was too scared to finish it. And it happened again with Final Fantasy 13 too. So now you're gonna be thinking like, gosh, did you finish anything?
Did you finish anything?
Well, Final Fantasy 13 was the very first Final Fantasy that I finished from start to end.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Persona 4 was the second game that I finished from start to end. So Persona 5 Royal, in my extremely short list of games that I managed to finish, to complete 100%, Persona 5 Royal is one of those games that I managed to finish from start to finish. And this is why I can always like with complete confidence in mind, I can say it out loud, strong in my chest, that Persona 5 was a fucking amazing game because it got me hooked for that many hours and it got me feeling things and it got me excited about my job as a UI designer. Like there's no other fucking game that has so much style emphasis on the UI as Persona 5.
Like, I would agree with that. Definitely. Because that game oozes so much style. It oozes so much confidence in itself in that style. It's just I have heavy criticisms of Persona 5, but its style is not one of them.
The UI is not one of them.
No,
definitely not. Like Persona 3, yeah. Their entire theme is blue. Persona 4, the entire theme is yellow. And blue and yellow as like just as a color they're very, very easy to incorporate in UI because blue, flat out easy. Everywhere is like a really nice neutral, easy on the eyes color. Yellow can be a little bit bright, but like Persona 4 pulled it off. It was a very like interestingly sunny and like the more brighter, cheerful of all three of the games, right? I say all three. There's like 5 of them. We don't count the first 2. Persona 5, their theme is red. And you're like, okay, red off the fucking bat is a negative color. Like no matter what game you're playing, red is a really bad color. Like it shows like, like low health. It shows that something bad, like warning, all of these negative connotations. To use that as your main theme color for the entire thing. Like, yeah, I'm gonna make it red and black. It's like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? But they pulled it off. They fucking pulled it off. I'm not even kidding, like I did spend many hours just like going in and out of all the menus and just clicking through it, just looking at animation, looking how like I was trying to reverse engineer it in my head as I was playing it. Like, how did they build this? Like, what shader did it use? Oh, what did they use there? And like I could not just rest. Like that game was exciting on the story level, gameplay, style, looks of it, and it made me feel inadequate as a UI designer, like in a good way. It made me want to be better, and that was a year ago. To anyone that's keeping track of the timeline of Anisa's life, a year ago I was 30 years old. To be that inspired to do something amazing in my career as a person in video games at 30 years old, I would say is astounding, because I'm not so much a hashtag gamer. Like I don't play a lot of games. I can't play shooter games. I can't play anything with guns in it. Not that I don't like guns. I'm just really bad at aiming. And I hate multiplayer. Like I do not play any games with multiplayer in it, because to me, video games is a very it's a very personal time, in a sense that like I like being by myself. Like to me, it's where I get lost in the story, which is why all the games that I am attracted to are JRPGs, right? So Persona 5 is one of them. And if you talk to a lot of people, they tend to talk about games that touched them or affected them in early in their childhood, right? So I have Final Fantasy 7 and Kingdom Hearts, but to have that kind of impact, like Kingdom Hearts 2 level impact as a child, again as a 30-year-old with Persona 5, that is why Persona 5 to me is my favorite game.
You mentioned how you had that sort of. You mentioned how it made how personally as well, like you had that sort of solo time as well, and especially getting the feels and all that there. Persona 5, its story, its characters, it's I wouldn't necessarily say it's groundbreaking in a way, but like it's very, at least for the first 50 to 60 hours of it that I played of it, it was really compelling. The characters were really compelling. Like talk to me how you found that anyway. Like, because like it's interesting that you sort of mentioned how going through that game, you sort of like mentioned sort of how you sort of clicked with it.
So I think so obviously since finishing Persona 5, a thing that I like to do, this goes with all pieces of media, is that I like to look them up, read through their Wikipedia page, just read about them, about their like how they were made. And for me, one of the things I love doing is looking up video essays on YouTube, right? See what people think. There's a difference between like game reviews and dissection of the piece of media, right? And I love, one of my most favorite things, one of my favorite video on Persona 5 on YouTube is actually, I think it was a 4-hour long video about why Persona 5 was bad. And I loved it because, I loved it because the dude who was talking to it, like he was very thorough. Like he pointed out every single thing that he disliked about it. And it ranged from nitpicky to actual proper critique, right? Nitpicky stuff, didn't give a shit. I was like, well, you had a problem with that. I didn't. A lot of this were like how deep were the conversations, like how interesting were the social links are. There's some strong characters, some are not, and I'm just like, I didn't really care that much. I thought they were fine as characters, all the side characters, not just the main characters. And there was a few other things where the guy critiqued about like level design, how all of the dungeons in the second half of the game felt really like repetitive and like samey and not as interesting as like the first one. Like, and that got me thinking, like, actually, yeah, like I think I did remember struggling with the last few dungeons because I couldn't really figure out the layout as well as I could the first time. Like it did get a little bit samey towards the end. And now that I've worked in video games, I kind of thinking like, you know what, this is just regular video games development. Like they've been in development for many years, right? They've been delayed for so long. It comes to a point where I feel like, yeah, they really did polish the first few dungeons like as well as they could, because that was the first few things that they started with. And then trying to finish up the rest of the game, they kind of just said, like, I wouldn't say it's like a, just put everything in and just ship it, but it's a little bit of that. We're just like, all right, we don't have the luxury of delaying this another few years. Like, we just got to get this done, And that, to me, late game Persona 5 definitely felt like that. However, this is where I think Persona 5 Royal is amazing, because again, I never played the first one, so I'm a little bit blurry on like the actual differences, but I did watch a few YouTube videos where they did point out all the things that I thought was in the first one. So those things were really great. And the extra content that they added, like the extra dungeons, the extra character, the extra final boss, that was great. Like, I wouldn't say like it's the most amazing thing ever, but it just flowed really well because those extra characters were introduced quite early in the story. I think the school counselor and your canon girlfriend. Yeah, and I really enjoyed how they were incorporated into the story, because you still had to do your main story, and the way that they've handled it is like the girl is literally just like, hey, do you want to join our party? And she's like, nah, I kind of want to work on myself. Like, you guys have fun. And I was like, didn't think like, you could just say no to a vigilante group of teenagers and be like, I see what you're doing, but I'm not interested. I'm just like, yes, the energy that I want. Like, you're too cool for the main team.
Just out of curiosity as well, like, who did you date in the game? Was because a lot of people went for Anne anyway, like in the original Persona anyway. Like, I think from what I remember, definitely for me anyway.
I really liked Anne for sure. As a character. Well, I have some of my critiques on her, but nothing new. Like, we've already same old thing. But I think I dated Makoto. Like, I think she was best girl. Wait, did I? No, I didn't. I dated New Girl. I dated the New Girl. Gosh, this I don't want to sound like I'm making up that Persona 5 is my favorite game, but I'm forgetting everyone's names now. Wait.
To be fair, I'm the same. I literally have Wikipedia of all the characters on my phone right now.
Kasumi. There you go. So the New Girl is Kasumi. I dated her because I actually genuinely liked the character. She was, she called me senpai and stuff, and I'm just like, yes, please do. Please continue calling me senpai. So I think, okay, so this is why I'm thinking Makoto, because like if she wasn't an option, I definitely would have gone for Makoto, because she's best girl. Like, she carried that team. Like, story wise, like, everyone was fucking useless. Like, she was basically doing everything for everybody. And there's definitely a lot of themes that I would love to criticize in Persona 5, because, there's a lot of problematic things, like your teacher dating you, that kind of stuff. Yes. When literally the very first dungeon was the fact that your teacher is abusing your friend, and why is it bad when a guy does it, but it's okay when a girl does it? It's like,
Yeah,
no, Japan, no.
bad Japan. Go to your room.
Yeah. The fact
Yeah,
that like just the whole like that, it's so annoying how the teacher route is, she's in this stupid maid costume the first time that you start your link with her, and she gives you massages, and I'm just like, that's really fucking weird, Atlas, number one. And number two, how dare you put like the most useful thing in the most awkward interaction? Because the massages let you like basically give you more energy to do more things. And I'm just like, this is useful gameplay wise, but I really don't want to call my teacher for a massage.
yeah. No, that was just like now that you're mentioning it, I'm just remembering going through that in the original FIFA. I was just like, oh god, no, 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 and especially considering, like you say, like early on in the game, you have one of the teachers at the school sort of blackmailing and bullying like one of your friends basically your friend's best friend basically to the point where something happens, let's say. Not I'm not I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hide spoilers here. I'm hiding what I'm saying here. I'm trying to be careful of what I'm saying for very
Yeah,
specific
yeah.
reasons.
Yep.
It's yeah, Atlas does tend to have a very problematic nature, and without straying too far away from it, it's not just Persona as well. Catherine especially got that as well,
Mm,
but like that can be a discussion for another day for Catherine basically. But like,
yeah. So
yeah,
I think so whenever I say Persona 5 is my favorite game, like people think that I like it 100%. It's That's not true. Definitely not. In a sense that like you can like something. Something can mean a lot, mean something to you,
yeah,
but you can also still criticize it, right? You can
yeah,
still see it for what it is.
yeah,
And I'm not telling people like, hey, Persona 5 was great. I am saying that, but I'm also saying like, but there's a few things in that's a little bit iffy. Like still criticize them, but you can still enjoy a huge amount of the game because they've polished the fuck out of like the battle system, and they've really the underground levels. What's it called? Uh, I don't know. I can't remember now. But yeah, like a lot of like gameplay stuff because it's the fifth Persona game, but it's not really. They've like had so many games since the first Persona. They've really like pat down the battle system and the UX of going through personas and building your team, like building your persona deck. It's so slick. It's so easy, and I've spent hours literally in that blue room just trying to make like the most strongest personas, trying to get like a really good build, and like
mm,
when I think about this, like a lot of my taste is in that. Like I lose myself in building a strong team. Um, so like I was thinking about this, like what other games do I like that I've actually finished aside from Persona? I finished like both Bravely Default games, and that is supposed to be like a Final Fantasy type game that is made by the original creators, that is supposed to feel like Final Fantasy, and I that had a great job system. And just literally recently, I was talking about Octopath Traveler, which to me had a bit of a it had weak storylines, but the gameplay was great. Like I loved the job system and I love battling in that. So just like Persona 5, like battles is fun. Like I'm actually looking forward to, attacking the next dungeon. But also I was really thinking about like why is Persona so good at keeping its pace? I know people disagree with me because some people thought it was like after a while it gets the same because it's the same formula of like new dungeon and then you go through it and then you go through your school life and then dungeon, school life, dungeon, school life. But for me, like I loved every part of that. I loved one-shotting all my dungeons in one sitting. And I loved like the scheduling part of like trying to fit in, like when you're going to talk to someone, when you're going to do your schoolwork, when you're going to do, da 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 da, all of that. To me, that was exciting. Like, I'm just like, yes. I think part of it is that because I played it during when COVID just started, it was really giving me this like socializing aspect that I was missing at the time, like the after school thing. I loved loving all of the school stuff and meeting with your friends and planning your next like planning how to level up and things like that. And Persona as a game, like as design wise, I think they've really hit a really good balance between like dungeon crawling and life sim, student sim on both ends, and I'm getting like best of both worlds in this one game.
We mentioned that sort of style element of Persona 5 earlier, and we'll touch back on that again in a second. But like another big aspect of why Persona 5 is, so stylish, so ridiculously stylish, like, is not just in terms of its themes, but primarily as well its audio, specifically the soundtrack. Holy fuck, does that soundtrack fucking slap! That shit legitimately is brilliant. Shoji Meguro is a master. That is an incredible soundtrack.
Oh my goodness. Like, yeah, like, no cap, one of the best soundtracks of all time. And I know I'm biased, obviously my favorite game, but even if you don't play it, like, it's such a good soundtrack. I've gone through so many playlists on YouTube where it's like, one of those like study with me kind of thing,
Yeah,
where like
yeah.
chill beats to study to, like Persona 5 versions of those, just on loop. Just like, it's so jazzy, so cool, so like it gets you like the more jazzy, chilled out, like coffee shop style. It's so good to like do work to, and then you get into like the battle themes, and you're just like, you're so pumped up. I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna run, like going out on the run. This is the soundtrack I want on. And oh my goodness, the Games Awards last year, the the band, they did like a live rendition of one, the Persona 5 songs, and it was like, I got goosebumps. I shouted, fuck, oh my god, like, it's so good. Like, they performed the shit out of that song. It was so good. And yeah, like, I'm gonna put on the Persona 5 soundtrack when I'm done with this later, just to bask in it a little bit more.
And
I think
I was going to say as well, like that, and it's like in terms of the sort of school life, social life aspects of that game, like, and the other games as well, like you mentioned with the colors, with Persona 3 being blue, Persona 4 being yellow, Persona 5 being red. That sort of applies to the soundtrack as well, because like from what I remember from Persona 3, although not as heavily as Persona 5 or even Persona 4, I remember that being sort of electronic-esque and maybe rockish as well, whereas Persona 4 sort of poppy and upbeat and stuff like that there, whereas Persona 5, like you say, it is very jazz-esque. Like, there's different themes running throughout.
So yeah, Persona 3 was a lot of very hip-hoppy, I would say, because like,
hip-hop,
yeah. So I think I think this is the reason the Persona series has a following at all, is because of music. Like, the thing that sets Persona 3 apart from Persona 1 and 2 is just off the bat style, like graphical style and musical style. Like, it is so fucking iconic that you start a random battle in Tartarus in Persona 3, and he goes, baby, 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 and just like, yeah, let's go,
Oh,
and
yeah. Baby, baby. Na, 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 na.
So good. And Tartarus is such a fucking pain in the butt because it's a never-ending tower. It just keeps going up and up and up. And like, what keeps you going? The soundtrack. And yeah, they just did like they knocked it out of the park with Persona 4, obviously, and again Persona 5. Like they knew that the places to cut corners is not the music. Like they have to get that right. Like I wouldn't be surprised if that was the first thing that they started concepting on, is just getting like all of the soundscapes of Persona 5 correct, because like you could literally just put any song in shuffle and I would just listen to it. I close my eyes and I just know where exactly I am in the world. Like, am
It
I at the
just
cafe?
transports you
Am
there.
I at school? Yeah, it's just like if the music kickstarts like that image in your head, like that's how impactful that was.
Yeah, I mean, like going back as well to that sort of style of the game that we sort of alluded to there just now with the soundtrack, and even going back with some of the art design as well. Like I feel like that's another aspect that Persona just gets right, especially as of Persona 3 onwards, but especially, Persona 5 anyway. It just nails that sense of style in, if not all the places, then definitely most of it anyway. And you have to have an utmost level of balls basically to be able to pull off that sort of style throughout, a game like Persona 5. Like, how do you think Atlas is able to do something like that across many facets, like, you know, music, across art design, across basically those sorts of things? Because, like, there's very few games that I think do style perfectly or near perfectly. In fact, there's two games that I would say do that for me, and that's Sayonara Wild Hearts and Persona 5.
Definitely. So, I think the art director for 3, 4, and 5 is the same person. People
Shigenori
are,
Sukina. Yep.
yeah, people are free to correct me on this, but I'm pretty sure it is the vision of, that's it. It's a very strong vision. Like you need a very clear vision of what you want it to be, and it shows. I'm not attributing the entirety of 3 different games across hundreds of employees to just like the one art director. Definitely not.
No, no, no.
It is collaboration of like hundreds of artists, like flat out, yes. But it is this concise, strong, like super strong direction. That's what I mean. Like it's a vision that everybody knows, everybody agrees on, and a direction that it to me it's so clear. Like you can see something, you're like, is that Persona? Yes, no, and it's like, yep, this is a Persona thing. It looks like it feels like it. Let's go with this. If it's not, then it's like, So even like, oh, this is why I love art books, because art books sometimes show variations of like artwork that they don't use or they don't pursue. But even then, you look at it and be like, yeah, I can see this existing in that universe. Like it is a thing. So even if it's like unapproved or whatever work, it it still has that same essence of what Persona is.
Mm.
And in games development, right? Like we have this thing called core pillars. And core pillars are literally just that, like they're a concept or that usually you can distill down to like a single word. And I think Persona 5 definitely had, I don't know what they are. As in, I wouldn't know what the exact like Japanese words they use, because obviously the Japanese have different ways of thinking about concepts as Westerners do, based on language. That's just how language works. So I would say like, if style, like to me, I was like style is one of them, and the the rebelliousness. I don't even know if that's the correct word, but that's what how you feel from the start till the end of the Persona game. Like, okay, so the rebellion theme, right? Like story wise, they're a group of teenagers, and a lot of like the main antagonists of the game are adults. Like they're really fucking shitty adults. Like
Yeah.
even I'm just like, why are grown ups so shit in this world, right? So is the teenagers like they're in the system and they feel trapped, and they feel like the only way that they could retaliate is through in this other world where they are phantom thieves with powers and the ability to do X, Y, and Z. So that's their form of rebelling but also seeing the real world like effects of their actions, right? Like they're basically like vigilante do-gooders. Well, this is one of the things that I quite like. Like there was a point in the middle of the Persona 5 game where somebody dies and they thought it was them. Like, you know, they didn't mean for that person to die, and that was like a huge turning point as a group where the teenagers, these like, that's when I felt like, wow, they really are just kids who don't know what they're doing, right? And they're just like, hey, it's been fun up until this point. Like, oh god, something happened, you know. And just that kind of rebelliousness, like going, like breaking the rules, like you see that in the design as well, in a sense that, like, I'm gonna touch on the UI design. Like the UI design is basically broken rules. Like all of it is just, it's not broken pieces of UI, but
No.
the most basic tenets of UI is that everything's on a grid, right? Like it's you want things to be on a grid, everything's aligned where it should be. Like you want hierarchy to be to see things clearly. You want to make sure things you know, like don't get lost. Like the whole point of UI is that you don't think about it, that you just use it, right? But with Persona 5, they're like, no, fuck these rules. I'm just gonna make the lines go everywhere. What is a straight line? Everything's fucking diagonal. And like, hey, let's just use like insane colors that no one would ever use anywhere else, like bright red, lime neon green. I'm like, and it works. It fucking works because it's so like on brand, like it's so on theme, right? Like the even the fonts that they use was this like cut out magazine pieces of like letters that looks like ransom notes, right? And they obviously have those calling cards that they leave behind as phantom thieves, and you see that like just throughout all of their marketing, you know, like in the game, in world, even in IRL, like in their marketing, in their like press releases and things like that. It's like they're just so spot on. Like, we are phantom thieves, like we look like like this is how we work, and you know, we're breaking the rules, like we're running away from the cops, and like, you know, fuck the adults. And that's like, it's so like Persona 5 is a group of like insanely cool teenagers that I think every actual teenagers wish they were. I wish I was cool like that. Like, again, me as a teenager, complete fucking dork, useless. You know, I can only wish to have like a cool group of friends like Persona 5, and also the costumes, like they all look amazingly good. And I have a problem with media that portrays teenagers older than they are. And I think Persona, like a lot of like anime just does this anyway, and just I think like, what teenager looks like that? I didn't look like that. But then you go to Instagram and you see like teenagers these days actually do look like that, and I'm like, okay, I was just really bad at fashion.
Different generations.
Yep.
That's all you can sort of describe it as. You mentioned the sort of UI there, and we did discuss a little bit there earlier, but like I want to sort of get back to it, because Persona 5 and its UI, like for me, what makes a great UI is either how clean it is, or how if it has to be, you know, filled with stuff, then make it unique and stylish. Like for me, like one example of that sort of clean aspect of it is Naughty Dog's games from The Last of Us 1 onwards through Uncharted 4, Uncharted The Lost Legacy, and now Last of Us Part 2. And a lot of that, a lot of the work at the time anyway came from Alex Neonaki, who was on the show before, talking about Bloodborne. She's actually now left Naughty Dog, but that was one of the, like, I remember just sort of talking with her about that sort of cleanish aspects of the UI of The Last of Us, and being a big part of why that is my own favorite game. But in Persona 5, like, there's a lot hitting you on the screen as well, in terms of, you know, your party, your commands, and the bars and stuff. But it also works too because it is, again, stylish, and, you know, it comes down to those sort of aspects that you were talking about a minute or two ago. Um, what is it about that UI that just makes it work in the way it does, especially as someone who does UI?
Okay. So that's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that actually, because I've recently played The Last of Us 2, and so The Last of Us 2's UI is fresh in my memory, and I agree, it's slick. It's really it's quite minimalist, but not so minimalist that it's boring. So there's a difference between like minimalist and just plain like nothing to it, right?
Mm.
So TLO2 definitely. That's the first time I said that out loud. TLO2, The Last of Us 2. um, really it's really slick to use. I love the UI. I've never played the first game, and I've only played a little bit of Uncharted, but as a whole, like I think with Naughty Dog games, well, it's not even just them, just like these really big AAA games, mostly coming from the West, like UI is a thing that sometimes they don't want to showcase, as in there's so many times that I've played AAA games where they just say like, yeah, we want it to be the less UI, the better. You know, like that was their core pillar, is that they want immersion, right? Like so that's the main thing. So they want you to be immersed in the story, in the environment, in the characters, in like what's happening. So you don't want to be looking at all these boxes and stuff. You don't want to be playing the UI, as I'm using air quotes here, playing the UI. And that's completely fair. So Senua's Sacrifice, that game swept the BAFTAs when it came out, and he had barely any UI. And I spoke to Tamim like in person. I asked him like, "What are you gonna do with the UI?" Like, and he just flat out was like, "I don't want any UI. Like, I just want you to play the game. Like, don't even think about the UI." So like any other, like a lot of like usual indicators that you'd have, like health bars or whatever, they do it environmentally. You know, they do it through like sound or shapes or anything in the environment, or like the camera shakes or effects. Now that is completely fine, but what I love about Persona, and not just 5, like 3, 4, and 5, is that they treat UI as a whole character with attitude, with a personality. Like, no joke, Persona 5 UI has a personality. Like,
it does.
It could be personified, right? So easily. And that is with intention. Like, just like how with a lot of, like, say, The Last of Us 2, like their UI is simple and minimalistic, but slick, you know, really good UX there. But it's also the thing that takes you away from this almost film-like experience of watching things play out and experiencing the game, right? Like, it's only there for utility reasons. Like, it's only there so that you can shoot people and pick up stuff, da 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 da. But with Persona 5, it's pushed to the forefront, like straight up, as almost like another character that you're dealing with all the time. Like, it is loud, it is in your face, it is announcing its existence every time you start like a new battle, or even just pausing it to like reconfigure whatever it is. Like, it's there and it doesn't hide itself, you know? Like, it's the complete opposite of hiding it. Like, most people like, yeah, like, let's have less UI. Like, they're like, no, look at me, you know? That is how Persona 5 kind of approaches it. And I think not a lot of companies do that, because the philosophy around UI is usually in a supporting role. Like, it's only there to support the gameplay, right? Like, you buy a game to play the game, not the fucking UI.
Yeah.
And that's completely fair. But with Persona 5, you can't play the game without without playing the UI, you know? This is also something that I've realized after working on a few mobile titles. Like, most mobile games is literally the UI. Like, you are playing the UI like 80% of the time. So in mobile titles, like, my UI work is always way more than like other games are, ironically. Whereas with JRPGs, like, you kind of live in the menus, because there's so much like planning and setup for your team, like building like your strong persona sets and things like that. Like again, you literally live in that UI and you want to make your time there like nice. You want to enjoy
You want it
going
to mean
through the
something as
UI.
well.
Yeah, because like a lot of people design UI so that you don't notice it. And I do that. Like I'm making a UI so that you don't look at it, like so that you're just concentrating on the video game. But with a lot of JRPGs, the Persona series particularly, like I have not seen any other game that pushes their UI to the forefront like it does. I'm sure there's other games that does it, that has amazing UI, like but not many sticks in like in just the general psyche of gamers everywhere, to the point where you have people cosplaying the UI and people who don't play the game can recognize the game through the UI. That's just how iconic Persona 5 is. So, and I think that there's a hint of jealousy in the way I say about it. It's because I don't think I'll ever be in that position. I don't think I'll ever be lucky enough to work on a project where that is a core pillar, to have the UI style be as strong as character design, as environment design, because those are always your main actors, right? The characters, the environment, the gameplay, the level design. And UI has always been a supporting character, whereas in Persona 5, it's a main billing, just like everybody else.
That's an interesting way to put it as well. Like because again, it does sort of tie in with that style aspect of the game. Like it is very like like you say, it means something when you say that at the age of 30, that sort of UI, that sort of style, it inspires you to the point at so I don't want to say so late in your life because that's a bit unfair, but like at this point in your life,
yeah,
that UI has given you purpose in terms of, and it is just one UI, admittedly, but it is a UI. It's a user interface that also provides sort of inspiration to go, oh my god, that is amazing. I need to sort of do something with that now that it has inspired me, at this point in my life, basically, at this point in my career, even.
yeah. It's kind of like I don't know how other UI people feel. Like I'm definitely can't speak about everybody
No.
experience, but with mine, I've always felt like I need to, act like a secondary character, a supporting character. Like even when people do trailers for games, they always take the UI out, right? Like that's the first thing that happens. And I've come to the point where I'm just like, like I expect it. I expect for my UI to be taken out whenever a trailer is being made. So to me, like to see that to be not the case with Persona 5, it feels like wow, like I can be the main character. Um, obviously not everyone can be Persona 5. Obviously like as a UI designer, like you don't have that power anyway. But it's inspiring to see people at their best do amazing things, yeah, just like how any artisan can appreciate a finely made, I don't know, a carpenter can appreciate a really good wardrobe or something. A painter can appreciate a really good painting. I look at I look at buttons, I look at screens, and I just think, wow, like you this is creative. Like it's not just purposeful. Like it serves a purpose. Like there's no UI made for the sake of it, right? Like these are things that you need, like the main menu, your just weapons and equipment and characters, everything. It's there, but also it, it it's also like 150, 200% more, like it's also very gorgeous. It's slick. and I feel like I'm repeating myself. But it's true. It's one of those things where like it's not just like, well, okay, it works, job done. It's more like, okay, no, like here's how it's gonna work, but how can we push it? I can kind of see it, like I can see just how many iterations they've done. Like how can they push this just a little bit more? Like what if you added just like one more effect? What if you added one more layer of illustration? What if you added like an ambient like animation in there? What if you did this? What if you did that? And it looks like they just kept adding on top of it and more and more and more and more. And it's just like amazing.
No, definitely. Remember that fight we mentioned at the start?
Oh yeah.
It's time.
Go on then.
It's time. It's time.
Tell me.
It's time. It's time. For the benefit of those who can't see, because like we have Zoom on here, but like you can't see this, but like my copy of Persona 5 Steelbook came with the limited edition. This is a bin.
Holy shit.
Let me explain why.
Go on.
Let me explain why. As I said, I loved Persona 5. Loved it. It was my most anticipated game of all time. More than Final Fantasy 13, and that I can go a story on itself for another day. More than The Last of Us 1. And that justified the anticipation because it became my favorite game. And more than Death Stranding, because it was a brand new Kojima IP. And while there are faults with Death Stranding to the point where I wouldn't consider it in my own favorite games list, I would say it is actually in my Game of the Generation list for last generation. So there are 4 games that I would say I've been really, really stupidly excited for. Final Fantasy 13, Last of Us 1, Death Stranding, and the most anticipated game of all time for me, Persona 5. Now, like I said, I loved so much of Persona 5. I was waiting by my door all day, waiting for the package to arrive. I think it came actually a day early before release from Amazon of all places. But then again, they got me GTA 5 a few days early anyway. I digress. I remember just sort of tearing apart, going like, Persona 5's here, Persona 5's here, oh my god, okay. And then like ripping it open and then finally sitting down, albeit a day later, and starting to play it. And oh my god, let me tell you, I felt right at home. Right at home. And I loved it, and I loved it, and I loved it, and I loved it so much. But then something happens. Because I've mentioned this before on the show. After about 50 hours, my attention sort of goes off on its own little thing. So I was sort of going, okay, time to wrap this up, bring it home, basically. I think I did something like 52 hours in Zelda Breath of the Wild, which is fine. I was honestly expecting some sort of overlap, like 50, 51, 52 hours. Fine, fair enough. By the time I finished up Persona 5, how long did your playthrough for Royale take? Can you remember?
130 hours.
Right. See, I mainlined the story. I completely mainlined it. I didn't really do a whole lot of side stuff. I just basically mainlined the story. And I think I finished it, if my memory serves me right. I finished it in around 70, 80 hours. And the reason I say that is because, like I said, I sort of mainlined the story, the main story. But also as well, like I said, I can only hold my patience so long. You can only hold my attention for so long. And towards the end of Persona 5, I feel like by the time it was starting to wrap up, it was wrapping up at too slow of a pace. It was going about at a pace where it just felt like it was padding itself out. It was stretching itself out for the sake of just padding it out. And I think in itself, the final dungeon with how do you call it again? Yell the Buff. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
That entire dungeon was something like 10, 15 hours in itself. And I was just like, no, too long. Too fucking long. Too long for my liking, to the point where it absolutely demoralized me and like actually ruined the game for me as time has gone on. Because like I had it in my own top 10 games for the year it came out in 2017. Like if you even go back a few years earlier, like I mentioned it for the end of year special we did on my favorite game. And I mentioned how for the first 50 hours it was this amazing game, but after that point and the final dungeon, it felt like it was padding itself out, like I said, for the sake of padding it out. And like as time has gone on, that last dungeon just completely ruined my time with the game. And so I say I hate Persona 5 now. I don't necessarily mean as in to say I now hate the entire game. If only it were so easy. And like, I joke about putting my game in the bin. And I actually did put it in the bin, but I actually probably should take it out. No, but I assure you it is now fine and is back up on my shelf. My point is to all of this, I do joke. But it also sort of demoralized me from playing Persona 5 again. Like with Persona 4 and Persona 4 Golden, I've not played Persona 4 Golden since I finished it a few years ago, but like at the same time, I have no qualms going back to that again, sometime down the line. With Persona 5, I don't feel the sense of wanting to go back because of how bad that last dungeon was pacing-wise anyway. Because it was just... It ruined a lot of goodwill for me, frankly, with that game. And so, I guess this isn't really a question. It's more of a rant than anything. Because I need to get it out of my system. But...
So, okay. So is it literally just that last bit
yeah,
that felt like it was dragging out? Is that literally it?
That is it for me. Like, it just completely sort of destroyed a lot, if not all, the goodwill I developed towards that game.
I think in general, Persona 5 is content-wise, you could complete it, like you said, if you mainlined it, you could complete it in less hours than the first two, the previous two. And it again, same thing where I feel like it did feel like they were padding things out to get more hours in, because I think I might be generalizing here, but JRPGs tend to do that. Like they just want to pad out more and more hours of their game, right? Like that all of our games is so like that in just by nature. Persona 5 definitely I think fell into that trap. But I obviously played 135 hours and I was thinking, why am I so long? But I played the royal version, which had an extra 10, 30 hours or so towards the end because of the extra dungeons. And I think to me, like I agree. I think Persona 4 has a more compelling story, and the pacing is better. Which is probably why the big reveal of the big bad of like whatever god you're going up against is a lot more like exciting, I think, for sure. But I guess for me, that didn't really bother me that much. I think I was enjoying the process. Like, if you don't enjoy the process, anything could feel tedious, right? And that's what I'm getting from your rant, was that Persona 5 felt like it was tedious and the payoff wasn't as big as you expected it to be, so that fell flat. Whereas for me, I did struggle a little bit with the end concept of the god that you're trying to defeat, because that's Persona 6, isn't it? Where you just, you're a bunch of kooky friends, and then you, by the end of it, let's go up against God. I love that trope, but also like, um, I think it was interesting to me. I liked that. I liked it because there's a lot of callbacks on like previous big bosses that you went up against,
Mm.
and but again, I can love something and criticize it. I did think the uh the connection that they made, where it was like, okay, this god wants to basically take away free will from the world, from like the general populace, and uh like the kids are saying like, no, that's again with the whole theme of being rebellious, is that
Yeah.
you have free will and you want to go against the rules. You don't want to be told what to fucking do. Like that's literally the teenage mantra. Don't tell me what to fucking do.
Yeah,
And they
basically,
bring that
fuck
all the way
you. I
up.
won't do what you tell me.
Yeah. And um I think I caught that early enough, long enough, that towards the final end, they just brought that theme all the way to the end. Um, Even with the extra content in Royale, like um, the theme is there as well. It's again like it's not that huge of a spoiler, but it's basically like, you're in this almost perfect world where you get everything that you want, but it's not real, which is why you're going up in this final dungeon, because you're going up against the person who is making this fake world, right? And in this fake world, there's a lot of people that died in the first game, that is alive again. And a lot of, the internal turmoil that these kids go through is that they have to choose reality where they have the choices, where they can make their own decisions, right? So that was the whole part of it, where they want to make their own decisions.
Hmm.
And I think they did that quite beautifully in Persona 5 Royale. And again, not a really big spoiler, but in the final battle, um, with Royale, the final thing that you do is a single button press that says shoot. And like, this could have been a cutscene. This could have easily been a cutscene where you, the protagonist, just go up, like your character literally runs up to this really big thing, and he is standing right in front of this massive like head of the final boss,
Hmm.
with his gun just pointed point blank straight up to the face. And then a little UI little thing comes up that says fire, and a little X for the PlayStation.
That
And I
reminds
remember,
that honestly reminds me of Metal Gear Solid 3, because like I don't know if you've seen it somewhere or whatnot, but like with Metal Gear Solid 3, right at the end, there's a scene right at the end of the last boss fight with the boss. It's Snake versus the boss. You beat the boss. She hands you her gun. You point it at her, and it, like you say, like in Persona 5, that could have been a cutscene. But that is actually a gameplay moment. You're forced to shoot. You're forced to shoot your mentor. You're forced to pull the trigger on her, and that was a bit of that. Up until The Last of Us was a big reason why I love Metal Gear Solid 3 to the point it was my favorite game for so long until The Last of Us 1. It handed you that decision. It handed you that decision in gameplay, not cutscene. It was a massive, massive impetus, no, not impetus, massive sort of choice it provided on you. And it was a big one too, considering how meaningful the boss is as a character. I should stop before I get ahead of myself, because then if I do, I'm going to talk about that scene in Metal Gear Solid 3 all day. And I digress. It reminds, like you describing the scene in that way, because admittedly it's been a while since I've not played Persona 5 since I finished it, but like it did remind me a lot back when the way you were sort of describing that scene, it did remind me a lot of the boss in Metal Gear Solid 3 anyway, when you have to shoot her basically.
Yeah. So I think that's a thing for a cutscene heavy type of game, which is most of these story narrative based games.
Especially
The
Metal
fact
Gear.
that they turn it back onto the player and be like, no, you press the nuke button on this, like that's in your hands, right? And I remember literally just having to stop for a little bit. Like, I don't know if you remember, like in Persona 4, when I said like my palms are sweaty because I've been playing for so long, and my whole body's kind of a little bit shaking, and I was like, I know I was this close to finishing it. That like feeling of my sweaty palms and like just slightly like still feeling like phantom vibrations from my controller of playing the game for so long. I felt that again with Persona 5 Royal. I know I'm speaking of an experience that you didn't go through, which is why I still think like Persona 5 Royal um, is a really good like director's cut of a video game, like compared to Persona 5. Like I don't even fault anyone for disliking Persona 5, but at the same time, I feel validated for really liking Persona 5 Royal because it is almost like two different games. And um, that final moment, I remember just pausing to take a photo of the TV screen because I was like, oh my gosh, I need to record this memory somehow. I took a photo.
I need to record this moment of validation.
And it was kind of funny. It was weird because it was such a late game thing, I didn't really want to spoil people. But then again, originally came out in 2017 and no one's really paying it now. So I was like, yeah, okay, sure. So I Instagrammed it and I was like, this is amazing. And yeah, just speaking of, I think that's the thing. Like when you talk about video games, you talk about what it made you feel, what went through your mind, what was the like visceral reactions you have physically, and not just emotionally. And Persona 5 gave me that because I managed to pull through towards the very, very end. And I also did a lot of the mini games, like a lot of the side things. I did all of them because I just really liked it. But I also realized that's not how most people play it. So yeah, I think it was definitely a game that I was lucky because number one, I was already a fan of Persona games, so I was looking forward to it. But number two, I am unique in a way that I don't mind things being delayed. Like I don't feel the need to play things now. All of the games that I play are always like a year old or something. Unless it's awards season, then I have to play video games for judging. But like if I'm playing games for fun, I always wait a little bit longer. And I didn't even know Royal was going to come out, right? I have no idea what Royal was, but I knew that was coming out like 1 or 2 years after not playing Persona 5. And I think I was gonna buy it, but Royal was supposed to come out in like 2 months or something. So I was like, nah, I'm just gonna wait for a Royal. And I'm glad I did because I think I would have not wanted to play Royal if I played the original. Just going based off of like, people's comments, like all the hundreds of YouTube comments, YouTube videos of people kind of like criticizing the first game. But no, I got lucky in like so many different ways. And I'm happy to be if Persona 5 Royal, if I'm the only person who thinks it's like favorite of all time game worthy, I'm okay to be that person. Like I'm okay with it, and I'm okay with not having anyone else to squeal with me. But that's also not true. Other people loved it.
With that being said, let's say that I decided to give Persona 5 a second chance. Let's say I was interested in playing Royale again, or playing Royale for the first time. Sell me on it.
They've actually, you know what? They've actually fixed a lot of the dungeon issues, and I only say this because I never felt any of the dungeons were difficult. Not difficult, more like annoying or like tedious. I mean, some of the mini games, like when you turn into a mouse, I hated that. Like that was kind of annoying. But it was also like quite easy and quick to finish. So a lot of like those kind of issues they did fix. And I remember what it's called now, Memento, like
Yeah.
the underground thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mementos,
so that was apparently quite grindy as well. But they've actually added this little boy where you collect flowers and you collect flowers in mementos, and then you sell this to this boy, um, and the stuff that he gives you in turn for that is actually really, really good. Like they're really very good, like things that you definitely use in for your main dungeon quests and stuff. And I think because it's like procedurally generated, they've tweaked it as well. So that process is also actually quite well done. I also didn't have an issue going through mementos. And they've added more stuff to do with social links. You can earn higher social links. Like there's a lot of like these tiny bits and bobs where like you can choose certain dialogue and you get like extra social link points and things like that, and like you get like extra bits of cutscenes and voiceover tracks and things like that. So I feel like a lot of the teething issues, like tiny like quality of life stuff that was really grating, like Mona telling you to go to bed or whatever, like apparently that was a thing.
Oh, it was.
That people really hated, but that was not a thing at all in Royal. So I was just like, why are people like, I was purely confused at like the dissonance between like the bad reviews, not even bad reviews, just like tiny like niggles and complaints, right? And my actual experience has been fun. Even my housemate, who doesn't play any Persona games, he would actually just sit in there in the living room because he enjoyed the music so much, and he would just watch me play and stuff. And yeah, like a lot of my criticism with it is basically how it handles story, certain characters and things like that. And I don't think that you can't really change that in Royale. But whereas like quality of life fixes, I think the things that makes you not want to stick around, they definitely have fixed that. Like, and also there's no shame in playing on easy mode, just to get through the story really quickly, because we're all adults and we don't have that much time. Like we need to do like life admin things. But yeah, I think it is definitely director's cut, like so many quality of life fixes that you can just tell the team wish they did first time over, but they've had the chance to do in Persona 5 Royale. And as a developer, I think not many people get that chance. Like once you release something, it's out there, like you might do some patches here and there, but like you don't get a whole second life re-release, like a whole new packaging, a whole new thing, like a whole new like opening cutscene music, a whole new character in there, all of these things. Like as a developer, if I worked on Persona 5, I would be so happy to be able to do that again, like get things right for Persona 5 Royal. And maybe that's why I'm a lot more like lenient on them. I'm less harsh on video games. I find the longer I'm in the industry, the more I feel like there's a reason why things happened the way they were.
No, definitely. Honestly, I think you might have just done enough to actually sell me on it. I'm not even lying when I said it. You actually might have done. You might have actually sold me on it. It'll be probably a while for reasons that I explained to Anisa before we started.
Yeah.
But like, you sold me on it. I think you've sold me on it anyway, for sure. So
I think you definitely need to think about it as like a whole new thing. Like kill the old thing in your head. Like that's dead. Like that's a shit game. Like come with it, fresh eyes. Maybe in the future, maybe give it 5 years or so when you have enough distance from it, so that when you're looking at it, you don't get angry anymore. You're just like, I'll give it a go, like an old ex partner. Not that you should ever get back with your ex, God no. But you're also thinking like, should be like, maybe they've changed, maybe we can still kind of be friends.
See how they're doing.
Exactly. But also, if it doesn't work out, you can just stop playing and it's fine. It's completely fine.
Well, like saying something just then, you reminded me of that line in The Last Jedi, or I can't remember. It was kind of fucking said it, and I can't remember what the life of me what the line was. Fuck. Uh,
You can look it up.
kill
I-
it. Destroy it if you
I-
must, basically. I think that was it.
Kill it, destroy it if you must.
I'm actually going to look this up. Kill it, destroy it if you must. Last Jedi. I'm actually, yeah. Let the past die. That was it. Destroy it. That was it. That's right.
Yep. Let the past die. No, that's true. Yeah. I think if I were to try to convince you to play Persona 5, that game, I would be like, no, like that's impossible because that's the same game. But Persona 5 Royal is literally not the same game at all. So
you have
think-
sold me for it, I think, definitely.
yeah. I wonder if you can do it on like New Game Plus because you'd advance so much quicker on New Game Plus, and I think that would just make your experience so much better.
Oh, that would make my life a lot easier. Certainly would be a time convenience anyway.
Exactly.
So we sort of talked about Persona 3 and 4 anyway earlier, so like we don't need to sort of delve into it too much, but like the other aspect of Persona 5 is Persona 5 Strikers has just come out as of recording this. In fact, yesterday it literally just came out.
Yes.
Are you going to play it?
Probably. I say that because I own a Switch, and I love Persona 5, so obviously this feels like, of course, I'm going to get it. But there's always a but. The reason I like Persona 5 is because I like the turn-based JRPG genre. Like turn-based, that's the thing that I love. Which is why I didn't like the Final Fantasy VII remake as much, was because they've moved from turn-based to more action-based. And I can see why it's more exciting for people, but that game drained me. So similarly with Persona 5 Strikers, it's a bit of a hack and slash, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a Musou game, yeah.
Exactly. And I don't fancy that genre of video games, but I'm always open to trying new things. And if the genre is packaged in a Persona 5 package, clearly they want me to play it. So I feel like I don't have a choice. I'll have to play it.
Definitely. I think I don't think I've seen a whole lot of like Strikers a whole lot since it was announced. I probably should watch at least one new trailer, of it, recent trailer anyway.
So I don't know anything about it in a story wise.
I know it takes place after the main story of Persona 5 anyway.
Yeah, like it's almost like a like an epilogue, like a after the thing, and then you kind of see everybody again, that kind of thing. And I've seen some reviews saying that as a continuation of a story is quite nice. So I'm looking forward to that at least. But the thing that the thing that I just want answers for, which I'm pretty sure I will not get, is just the whole Akechi thing. Like what happened to him? Because it's kind of, it's really blurry. Like we don't know what happens to him at the end of Persona 5 Royale even. And that yeah, I think that's gonna kill me, not knowing what happened to him. And I don't think Strikers will answer that. Definitely not. Like, I think Strikers will have its own like post-game storyline that is separate from the whole Akechi thing. But you know what? Fan fiction exists. Fan art exists. I have been hunting down some like Akechi specific comics, so I'm good. I do love how quite the bisexual icon the protagonist is in Persona 5, because Akechi is so clearly his boyfriend and Kasumi is so clearly his girlfriend. Like he goes both ways and he's having a great time.
Like you say, fucking icon, queer icon.
Yep, I love it.
So what else do you like about Persona 5 Royale that we've not touched upon, basically?
I don't know. I think when people talk about Persona 5, they think about, the whole JRPG aspect of it, of, dungeons and it's a team, it's a party that you have to level up, and you grind and things like that, which is classic JRPG. But Persona as a series, what they did really well is the whole life simulation that I mentioned, like as a student. And I think with a lot of video games, you forget how young people are, because it like they can just say in a biography page somewhere like this character is 17 or whatever, and you're just like, no 17-year-old could do any of these things. Whereas with Persona 5, they have a lot of really quirky things that I feel like is very much reminiscent of your teenage years, because it's set in school. You still have to do like your schoolwork. So I really love those tiny little social moments. Not just with your social links, but just those tiny bits where in the uh, because it's cool, you have exams. In the midst of all this, you still have to study. So there's like these little like heartfelt little tiny scenes, and you're in the library and you're just trying to figure things out, and and then you study in the library, or you study in a restaurant, or you hang out with your friends to go to a bookstore. Just there's all these tiny like um social narrative bits. I really like that. And I think um that's one of the stronger parts of Persona as a series, is because one of the main themes is social links, and the only way you do social links is by communication and like the little interactions that you have. Like Persona romanticizes a fantasy setting, but at the same time it romanticizes the everyday life. Um, and I think we need more of that, where we are happy to go through our everyday lives of like, there's nothing wrong with rituals, repetitions, habits. People think if you do the same thing every day in and out, you're wasting your life away.
Mm.
But in reality, you only get good at something because of repetition, right? Like if you go to the gym every day, or consistently, or if you draw consistently, that repetition, that constant like small habit building of whatever you're doing, that is the reason why you're good at that thing, you know? Um, some people are really good at certain video games because they play it all the time. And I think we need more of that, where again, it's Persona has this really great way of making you feel like, God, I wish I was this cool in this amazing costume, like doing this like heist in this massive casino in this fake world, where it has like real life consequences. That is like riveting. But at the same time, I enjoy just texting my friends in the game. And like there's a group chat with you and your party members. I love those. And like someone says something stupid and everybody just shits on him. It's always a Ryuji. Ryuji is always the butt of the jokes. And like, and everybody has their own personalities as well. It's not like you're always together. So I think that's a thing. Like, if I think about my school days, my teenage years, I miss that. I miss the casual meetups, the spontaneous things that you do as a child. Like these days, I live in London. If I want to meet any of my friends, I have to pre-book them like 2 weeks in advance, being like, hey, are you free this Saturday or like this Tuesday? Obviously I'm talking about pre-pandemic days. But even now, like people get Zoom fatigue, and you can't just call up somebody like and they'll be like, I really don't want to talk right now, like I'm tired and stuff, right? But in Persona 5, like you kind of just do that. Like there was this whole bit where you can just walk around town and just see who's there, and you can decide to spend time with them or not, right? So that's part of the social link, where you spend time with them to get your link up. But obviously power users or players will have the schedule, so they know which characters are appearing when, so they can maximize that part of it. But I actually enjoyed literally not planning that and just walking around and I feel like I'm going to see Anne today. I wonder if she's around. So I'll go into that underground mall to see if she's there. And if she is, I'm like, yes, great. Let's go do a thing with her because I want to link up with her and stuff. And yeah, so I think that's the That's the best part. One of the best parts of Persona is like the dichotomy of fantasy world and just regular school kids world, and they marry the two so well.
The way you put it, like it's just that basic case of routine, basically, which is pretty much like we sort of live or die by it, especially if you're a person of neurodiversity, like myself, basically.
Yeah. I think it's really weird because like I've been diagnosed with ADHD and I'm currently on medication for it.
And
And
I should fully discuss if considering Nisa's, talking about her, whereas I may as well be upfront. And this is the first time I've actually openly said about this on the show. Like, I'm autistic. Like, I'm like routine is funny enough for an autistic person. I am not very good with routine. So the way you sort of describe that, it's just like I respect it and I understand, but routine just goes like whoosh over my head.
yeah, so I think that's the irony of it. So ADHD and autism overlaps quite a bit. Like a lot of the symptoms are quite similar.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure I'm not autistic, but I am diagnosed with ADHD. So in that regard, I kind of relate a little bit in the sense that routine is impossible for me. Like it is just it's difficult and I hate it. And and it's also the reason why I don't achieve a lot of things I set out to achieve, and ironically, apparently a lot of like the solutions to my problem is to have a routine. I speak to doctors, psychiatrists, I have a therapist I've been seeing for 4 years, and they always emphasize on the benefits of routine, but it's so difficult. Like it's so difficult to do that. And even on medication, it's still a lot of effort. Like it's not like a one-shot solution. It's like you design your life around it to how you say it, like to make sure that you don't fall out of routine. And you kind of you manage it the best you can so that you don't like big things don't slip. Like sometimes you just have to let go of certain things because you just don't have the capacity for it or whatever. And just to connect this back to Persona 5, it's ironic in a sense that like routine is so much easier to do in a video game. Like I have set routines for like things that I want to do and hit. Like there's goals that I want my character to hit. Like I know that certain social links will give me certain benefits in battle. So that was one of the perks of social links, right? So I'm just like, oh, I need to go see this person. I need to spend time with them and stuff like that. So that's I think again with the whole like playing a fantasy, it's also playing a fantasy of being able to keep to your routine.
That's a good way of putting it. That's honestly a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So I think that's why I really like Persona 5. Like it's just so it hits all the right spots for all the different things that I like, fantasy and real life.
What didn't you like about Persona 5? Like we have talked one or two of the problematic aspects of story in a way, but like what else did you like?
So a lot of the issues that I have with it is again story related. So it's always how they handled certain themes. We've mentioned the whole like student-teacher relationship and how it's quite hypocritical of being incredibly like this male teacher is horrible, and yeah, he was horrible. Like he flat out one of the worst well done antagonists that I've seen, but the completely lacks treatment to the female teacher when she's basically doing the same thing. And I think the other thing that I thought was bad was that like I think we mentioned earlier how it felt like it was a bit rushed towards the end. Like they just padded things and it wasn't really substantial. I think Haru, the last girl that you recruit into your party, her story was I thought was going to be a huge point, as in, is it, should I just talk about spoilers here? Like,
Yeah, go for
the
it. Go
fact
for it.
that, yeah, so like her dad dies, and that was the turning point where your group changes from like a happy-go-lucky group to like, oh fuck, shit, someone died because of us, you know, regardless if it was them or not, right? But that guilt of taking away the life of a parent who, you know, the parent of your friend, no less.
Hmm.
And it wasn't handled as great as I thought it was gonna be handled. Like, I thought it was gonna be like a lot more impactful. And like a lot of the other drama, you know, took over, whereas Haru kind of never had her limelight to process and grieve the loss of a parent. Like, obviously her dad wasn't a nice person, but you know, you still grieve bad parents. So I think there was a lot of like moments there that was a little bit missed. Like a hit or miss. Yeah. And I guess if I'm gonna be nitpicky about storylines, I think Mona the cat, his storyline is also a little bit weird, in the sense that like there was a lot of buildup of like, who am I? Where am I from? You know, this internal turmoil of like not knowing what you are. And I think the reveal of it was also not super strong. Yeah, I think I wanted to feel a bit more empathy for Mona, and I really wanted him to get that closure. Oh, I think I remember now. Like, he basically, quote unquote, died, right? He sacrificed himself, but then he just comes up again later on as a cat, and everyone's like, "We thought you died." Jesus. I was ready to cry there. I was like, "Oh, Mona, I've been hating on you for like most of the game. Not hating, more like, you know, you're a little bit annoying." So I was gonna be all like, "I'm sorry, I hated on you. Please don't die." But then he came back, and I was like, "I'm gonna smack you."
The annoyance is justified, no.
Exactly. But yeah, I think aside from that, though, other characters did get the progression that I think they deserved, which is really, really good. Particularly your pseudo dad, that uncle that you live with, or live in the cafe of. He really didn't like you at first, but he eventually warmed up to you and just actually treated you like his son. And I thought that was really good progression. But yeah.
This feels probably a simple answer. I'll probably get a simple answer for this, but like top 3 Persona games, what would they be? Obviously Persona 5 Royal at the top. If I had to guess, it'd be something like followed by 4, then 3, right?
Yep. Yeah, Persona 4 smashed 3 out of the water, whereas Persona 5, a lot of people still preferred 4 over 5, and I think that's fair. But yeah, that just makes the ranking easy for me. 3, 4, 5.
Wouldn't it be 5, 4, 3?
Yeah, like I think I was counting backwards.
Okay. This is the kind of fuck on. Are we sure we're gonna have to start recording again?
Oh yeah, were we not talking about Persona 3 this whole time?
Honorable mentions. Go for it.
If I'm gonna do like a really quick fire of this, I would say Hades is in recent memory, one of the best games I've ever played by one of the most aspirational video game studios there is currently still working in the games industry, which is Supergiant Games based in San Francisco. I've followed them since Bastion. Transistor was my favorite game that they made up until Hades came out. Again, I know a lot of people didn't like Transistor as much because they prefer, like, Bastion was a really strong game, but apparently I just like games that most people don't like.
I love Transistor. I think it was just the last boss just sort of rubbed me a little bit the wrong way, but I love Transistor otherwise.
Transistor was amazing. I was in love with it. Again, bomb ass like soundtrack, both Transistor and Hades. Supergiant Games, obviously, one of their strong suit is the sound guy. I forget his name now, but
Darren
yeah,
Korb.
like, there you go. Yep, amazing. But also, like, I don't want to be cliche to say Hades as my favorite game because, like, everybody loves Hades, so it's not really an original thought, is it? But like, in recent memory, Hades was amazing. Persona 5 gave me the whole like goosebumps and just made me rethink my career. But if I go back a little bit further backwards, I want to say Final Fantasy 13 and 13-2 was really, really good. Like, it was, people hated 13 when it came out.
I'm one of them.
No problem. Like, I know it.
Sorry, go on.
I think the biggest critique was like, it's fine. Like, it's the linear progress, and then like how it's just like a single corridor for ages. And I think I like that. Like, I hate open world. Like, open world, no, I cannot do open world games because as a person who needs to do side quests, open worlds are daunting. Like, I would just never finish a game because I'm busy doing all the side quests. Whereas 13, the linear progression of the first half was not an issue at all, and I enjoyed it till the end. 13-2, I didn't like a lot of the characters as much, but the battle system was a very strong progression from the paradigm system of 13 as well. I really enjoyed it. I fucking hated 13-3 though. That's a stupid ass game. So as far as I'm concerned, Lightning finishes at 13-2. But yeah, and obviously Final Fantasy 7 and Kingdom Hearts 2 is childhood favorites. I don't think I can play them now. No, original 7 is too old for me to play right now. I have this thing where I don't like playing older games because UX didn't exist back then, and they're all mostly very painful. And obviously, nostalgia, rose-tinted glasses, they will always be much better in my memories than they are actually being replayed. And I can't believe I never mentioned this. Fire Emblem Awakening, specifically, one of my top all-time, like, again with Persona, like, so after Persona 4, I played Fire Emblem Awakening, just going by like moments, like top 10 video game moments of my life. That's Persona 4, and then there's Fire Emblem Awakening, and then there's Persona 5 Royal. Awakening, that was my very first Fire Emblem. I've never played any of the previous Fire Emblem before in my life. Very glad I started with Awakening. It is chef kiss, one of their best iterations, because they've got like a bajillion different versions of Fire Emblems. And Fire Emblem Three Houses, it came out recently. I enjoyed it. Flat out, I did enjoy it, but it definitely didn't. It definitely lacked that holy shit video games, feeling that Awakening gave. Awakening made me realize I liked that genre. I never played that kind of like tactical genre before. Tactical RPGs. I couldn't play Final Fantasy Tactics at all. But yeah, speaking of like UI, like how Persona 5 made me feel like I want to be better at UI. Fire Emblem Awakening. Not that their UI is amazing, as it was, like it was great, but not Persona 5 great. But that game inspired me to create a mobile app that you could use to play alongside that game. Because I don't know, for anyone who never played Fire Emblem Awakening, you basically have units. You go to war with them. Like you have like your different weapons, each unit, and there's permadeath. But they have classes, the job system. The thing that makes Awakening amazing is that you can marry your units to each other, and then their future child actually comes into the past in your current time. And that child, all of their stats is based on their two parents. And this just opens up a plethora of ways of you can build your team. And because of this, like certain jobs are tied to the jobs of the parent. So if you want that child to have a certain job with certain skill set, you do this little thing where you're trying to like matchmake, a bit of like a dating simulation now, where you're matchmaking all your team members together. And I thought like you need a way to do this more efficiently, because I was using like this weird program that people like .exe people put up on the internet, where you can input like two characters and you output what their child could be and what are all the like possible jobs of that child could be. And I was like, I can make an app out of this. This would be amazing. And that was the very first time I ever felt like I wanted to design a whole like side, like a company app to go with the video game that I'm playing right now. And yeah, I think all of my video games that I like awakens a certain nerd factor in me, and it's embarrassing.
That's a good thing, though. That's a really good thing.
I hope so.
Top 3 games ever. What would they be? Obviously, Persona 5 Royale at the top. How would you fill in 2 and 3?
Oh, fuck. That's difficult. I'm biased towards Hades as second, just because it's fresh and new. Like, we've been playing it for the past year. I've been playing on the Switch. So I'll just say Hades just because it's new. And number 3 would be Kingdom Hearts 2, because if that game didn't exist, I wouldn't be in the video games industry. So I blame Kingdom Hearts 2 for all of my bad life choices to end up here.
Any and all bad choices Anisa has made in life as well as career can be attributed to Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yep. All of like the bad boys that I dated, terrible men, Kingdom Hearts 2. That's it. That fault. Yeah.
Bad life choices, Kingdom Hearts 2. Bad career choices, Kingdom Hearts 2. Bad choices in general, Kingdom Hearts 2.
Kingdom Hearts 2. Yep. I wake up one day thinking I should have gone to the gym, but I did not. Why is that? Kingdom Hearts 2.
Fun times.
Where have you been? Been searching all along, confessing while alone and on without the clue.
So, yes, I am a UI designer, and you can follow me and all of my bad choice antics on Twitter at Studio Anisa. And I just so happen run a mentorship program on the side called Limit Break Mentorship. And we are a mentorship program aimed at underrepresented people working in the UK industry. So to find out more about us, we are at www.limitbreak.co.uk or on Twitter at LB Mentorship. And we're opening up. It's an annual thing. We open up every April. So if you're a game developer, you want to see me talk about UI in the Slack all the time, join Limit Break.
And like Anisa said, follow her on Twitter, so then you can sort of see her make those bad sort of decisions that can be attributed to Kingdom Hearts 2, basically.
I'm pretty sure I've recently tweeted about Kingdom Hearts 2 and how it resulted in my life right now.
with that being said, let's say that I decided to give Persona 5 a second chance. Let's say I was interested in playing Royale again, or playing Royale for the first time. Sell me on it. Sell me on it as someone who's sort of jaded with the original Persona because of that last bit. There goes my bin then. Anything can happen on my favorite game. I think that might have
There
been
you go.
that might have been a message of sorts. That might have been a premonition of sorts, like as if to say, I'm expecting Persona 5 Royale to join the main game in the bin. No, I kid.